What's going on, everybody?
Hi.
Hey.
Oh, I'm not on camera. There you go.
Well, if you turn it your way a little more and get a little less of all of this, that'd be great. Anyways, hey, I'm Derek. I'm back. It's great to be back. It's a good podcast. Last episode, you guys should listen to it.
That means it's okay that he stepped away.
It was weird, but it was good.
He was having control issues, I'm not going to lie.
Well, okay. This has been my baby for like 180 episodes, including the men's and women's podcasts. Like, it's hard to do that kind of thing, But now I'm completely confident in your tech abilities. That's more of what I was worried about. And getting it done on time, right? Like, that's one of those things. Like, I just don't want to miss it, That's all.
Yeah.
That's all. It was good. It was really good. And I appreciate the topic, too.
That was fun.
Even though it was literally a random topic. I mean, it was a God-given topic.
It was perfect. It was so perfect.
So, yeah, we're here.
So that's Derek, and I'm Matt.
And Luke Skywalker and Lizzie.
You sound so
I know I keep calling you Luke Skywalker.
You sound
Do you even know Star Wars?
I know a little bit, yeah.
Okay.
You sound so enthused when you said my name. I really appreciate
This is
the enthusiasm.
Lizifer.
Lizzie. The great and wondrous Lizzie.
Yeah! Woo! Is that better?
Lizzie, the life of the party.
We've
I
now
appreciate
been
Luke,
so
the other
excited.
two. You guys are on my short list.
Whatever.
You're always on my short list, Derek.
I just can't help it. I'm short. Anyways, so today the topic is Bible studies versus discipleship.
Not
Are they
that they
different?
should be at odds with one another.
No, more like the difference is one better than the other? Are they both important? Those kinds of things.
Differences in the way they're spelled. I mean.
Well, there's obviously that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I missed that one.
One is 2 words and.
Okay.
One word. Anyways,
So Bible ship.
Bible ship.
Bible ship and disciple studies.
I just said Bible ship. Discipleship.
Bible ship.
That's how out of it I am. I spent a week in Tennessee with all the teenagers. Got sick at the end. I'm in recovery of all that. And I just said Bible ship.
Bible ship and disciple studies. And welcome to the Truth Response. I'm going to pray. Thank you, Lord, for this day. I want to thank you for all the awesome blessings that you give us, God, and for the exhausting times so that we can learn to rest in you, God. And I just pray for that rest for everybody that's coming back off of vacations and off of just the hectic whatever summer stuff they've been doing and the conference trips and everything else as they're gearing back towards school or work or whatever. God, I just pray for that rest that you give us, and I just pray that you give each and every one of us somebody new to pour into and somebody new to pour into us, Lord, so that we can have those relationships that are examples that are the examples of Scripture, Lord. And thank you for your love, your grace, and your mercy that you pour out on us. And it's in your precious and holy name we pray. Amen.
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 All right. Bible ships and disciple studies.
Let's go. Let's go for it.
Let's do this thing.
Oh,
right?
man.
No, so Bible studies, right? Like, Bible studies is probably something that anybody who's been in the church for any length of time knows, has heard, right? Like, every church has a Bible study. So what is a Bible study?
Well, there's a Bible involved usually.
Yeah.
And usually you study it by
Yeah.
reading it.
reading.
All right, but realistically, what does that look like, though? Like, it's not just reading Bibles. I mean, that's not generally what happens at a Bible study. It's just reading from the Bible. Sometimes
you said Bible study, but you didn't give definition to what type of Bible study. So there's Bible study you can do solo. It's not required for more than one person.
Okay.
And then there's Bible study as in like a group activity Bible study.
Okay. There's a difference between studying the Bible and going to a Bible study.
It's still considered Bible study, even if you're doing it by yourself.
It's hard. That's hard. That's a weird one. I don't know if I agree.
I'm just saying.
It's you studying the Bible. You're studying the Bible.
Yes.
All three of our options are studying the Bible.
If I were to say to you, within my own Bible study, I found this out.
That's not what people say.
Why not?
Because they say, in my quiet time or while I was studying the Bible. Like, that's different.
Okay. That's semantics.
I don't think I've ever had anybody say that, though.
It's semantics.
During my own personal Bible study.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never heard anybody say that to me.
I've heard someone say it.
Well, one in a
Actually,
million.
I think I've said that.
Yeah. So there you go.
Shut up, Luke.
That's another person.
Wow.
Shut up,
Well-
or I'm coming after you next.
You can't just silence people that don't agree with you.
I
okay?
can.
That's not
This is
how
my
it works.
Watch, I'm going to mute you right now. No, I'm just kidding.
Wow.
We're going to promulgate
I would say that.
cancel culture. Wow, promulgate. That's a big word. I said it. I said it right.
What are you using? You're using big words now?
Yeah.
Did somebody get you a thesaurus or something?
I'm taking this, brain stuff now.
Oh.
Supplement. I don't know. I'm trying something new.
You sure it's not like a word of the day app? When you're
If you've got a good one, I'll
He's
take
got a
it.
calendar.
Do they have them actually? I wondered.
Are
about
They've
that.
got dad joke apps. So,
Do you
yes,
have-
they've got
Do you
word
still
of
have
days.
that?
The dad joke app?
Yeah.
Probably.
Oh,
Honestly, I don't even know.
dad joke
No, he did.
apps.
I really did.
There's a new
It
one
was
every
great.
day.
I feel like they should sign you up as soon as you become a dad. Like, you have a membership to this.
It's like Oprah. You
I
have
do
membership,
not.
you
I
have
got rid of it.
membership.
You got rid of it.
Anyways.
Well, that's okay. So, Bible study.
Okay.
Study of such Bible. Of 66 particular books.
One of, usually. Probably not all of them at the same time.
Maybe.
It could be topical.
Maybe it's the
Maybe
same
topical.
time.
You're right. Topical. Could be. But probably not all 66. Most of them
Maybe
don't
you're trying
have
to
all
learn how all
66.
66 books of the Bible come together.
Generally
And
not.
form the one story
Okay.
of one man in two events.
Now we're talking about a Bible class. Completely different thing.
Oh, now you're really you're gonna.
You've really stepped into it.
We're gonna go round and round. You're coming. Anyway,
You know what I mean, though. You know what I'm talking about. And there is a difference between a Bible study and discipleship.
yes.
And I just want to talk about the difference in the two.
Well,
Okay.
let's
That's what
define
I'm saying.
discipleship then next.
No, we
Well,
should define Bible study because
well,
we haven't
I
done
think
that.
It is the seeking of an understanding of better interpretation, knowledge, and application of the scriptures in a single or plural form.
Wow. Now, say it down to earth. It's a group of people getting together.
It's
to study
one
the
or
Bible.
more people trying to find better understanding of the Bible. Bible studies. Bible study.
well, isn't-
brain knowledge, right?
Brain knowledge.
Generally
maybe
brain
even,
knowledge.
Maybe even heart knowledge if you can start to find application.
Yeah.
Okay, I can
Application
I can
can come
see
through
that,
Bible study.
but generally speaking, people do Bible study for the brain knowledge. Sometimes heart knowledge accompanies it. I'll give you that.
I would say some there. I mean, yes, I'll give you that, but I'd say that some do go for heart knowledge as well. I mean, when you come to find, I think maybe that comes later. It's not as quick at the forefront for some people, but for me, I find a lot of things that I just do a heart check with, and it helps.
Sure, but during the Bible study itself, it promotes the knowledge portion of it. It's so you learn that. It's literally all about the learning of it.
Yeah.
And gaining understanding. The heart knowledge is more of the application, like you said, and that generally is taking what you learn from a Bible study and putting it into action. And you don't do that at the Bible study, but it does come along with it a lot of times.
It happens with discipleship too.
Well, that's what I was going to say. And for discipleship, as far as discipleship goes, discipleship, the primary goal of discipleship is to grow in the heart knowledge action portion of it and accountability portion of it.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's defining discipleship is what?
you're the one with the fancy dictionary
I thought we were
definition
gonna share
there.
this.
I mean,
I didn't think it was just.
well, I wasn't expecting a dictionary definition. So discipleship, so discipleship is the doing of life, holding accountable, and acting out what you've learned in Scripture, and helping others to do the same. It has to have other people. Discipleship can't be done by yourself.
2 or more.
Right.
At least 2. Think about it as discipline and being taught.
Not like in trouble discipline, but disciplining yourself as in
a disciple is a student.
Right.
And you can be students of one another. Like when you're discipling each other, you can help encourage one another and teach one another, and as you said, hold each other accountable. But there's.
But it's usually through action. If you look in the Bible, the disciples weren't sitting down for a Bible study all the time. They were doing life and learning through action.
Well, yeah,
how
even
to
before
be held accountable.
Jesus came on the scene with his ministry. I mean, you'd have Jews who were Pharisees and teachers of the law who would come and find disciples, people who wanted to learn, be under them as their main teacher.
Right.
And these disciples were to basically adapt and mimic their teacher in every aspect of their life. Everything they did, from how they ate, how they took breaks, how they applied Scripture to things, everything. And so with Jesus coming on the scene and looking for disciples, he was looking to teach people to be for him, kind of images of him out in the world, and he even empowered them to do so while he was both on the scene and off.
So. So now we've defined those. What's the major differences in the two?
I mean, in my definition, first thing is that Bible study can be done by yourself, whereas discipleship can't.
Okay.
So that's, to me, one of the first distinctions.
Sure.
And discipleship is like a relationship with one another, versus Bible study can be cold. You can be in a room where nobody really knows anybody, and there's a leader or someone who seems to know his stuff and is going through the Scripture and is showing different things and talking about different things. And even you can go around the room, and there's not really a relationship aspect that's required. It's better if there is, but it's not necessarily required to have it, unless you want to bring relationship down to its very core, that there's one thing that everybody's got in common, which is the Bible itself. But usually it's still kind of cold, whereas discipleship requires a warm relationship where one person is expecting you to be following that person or listening and being able to pour into, call out, all those things.
Pretty good.
Yep.
You guys got any?
That's
Any
coming from
thoughts on any
Foggy
of that
Brain.
stuff?
Yeah.
I mean, in that case, then, what Nick does on Sundays, for example, that would be Bible study, right? Because he's teaching, what we all have in common is the Bible. He's going through lessons of the Bible. And although it's not required for, all the people in the church to relate to one another, but there's still, everyone's still there for the same reason, right?
It's a slightly different thing. Because with a sermon, there's usually, some people might call it the message of the day, which is great for what I'm talking about. It requires buy-in to the person. So people aren't going to listen to just anyone go up and preach.
I'm going to mute my phone. Sorry, guys.
It's okay. Good preachers like Nick are going to go up. They develop a relationship with the congregation, and so they become the shepherd. They become the one that's up there. That it doesn't put him at a higher elevated status. It means that he is the one that they all look to as the person who's just leading the flock, that helps keep them in line, gives them the good word. It's almost, in a sense, it's almost like a prophet's position where it's bringing what God says about something into the life that people are living, finding application and meaning into things.
One of the other major differences in that is, some churches, there's feedback, but the feedback mostly on a Sunday morning is amens, claps, those sorts of things, but it's not like somebody's not going to ask a question. It's not going to be, it's not interactive
yeah.
as far as like contributing to the conversation. It's not a conversation, whereas Bible studies generally have a conversational element to them. So you can raise your hand and ask a question and then discuss it, or whatever the situation may be, like in the scenario that you're in. Whereas on a Sunday morning, it's more of if you're looking at it like a Bible study, it's more of a lecture type of a thing, even though it's still different than a lecture, in my opinion. But
I think it's more relational than a lecture.
Yeah, and that's part of it too. Is it's more relational than informational, even though there's a lot of information given. Whereas a Bible study is more informational than relational, generally speaking. Sometimes you get application that's deeper, but
so
does that make sense?
I think so.
Do you disagree?
I don't know, actually. I'm still a little out of it, so I'm surprised I've done well at all.
You're doing great. Keep it up.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it like a Bible study, like that's not that they're all very surface, but it's very surface level, like beginning, like this is like if you're new to Christianity or whatever, you don't know a lot about the Bible, it's a great place to start. To start developing that and your knowledge and stuff like that. And discipleship is that next step from that. And a lot of people don't ever leave that Bible study step.
Yeah.
I've got a pretty
extreme
unpopular opinion.
What else is new?
That Bible study has killed the church. And not that Bible studies are bad. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that all we want to do is do another Bible study, and we don't want to get deep. And so it's easy to just start another Bible study. It's hard to get in discipleship with one another.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think the reason is it requires a vulnerability, and that is something that is not easily handed out.
But that is quite easily probably one of the major distinctions that Jesus is talking about in Matthew 7 is you've done all these things, but you didn't get real. You didn't get real. You weren't vulnerable. You didn't get to know me. You didn't get to know your brothers and sisters and hold each other accountable. You didn't have that heart knowledge. You didn't get deep. You did all the things, right?
Well, yeah, I would be careful saying it and presenting it like that too much, because that also would indicate to some people that by studying the Bible like they've done, that they're not going to be saved. I don't think that would be but okay. Jesus does.
But that's a pretty big warning.
But
Jesus, I want to challenge that a lot of people who think they aren't.
Well, okay, so hold on. We'll be careful. Careful.
Okay. Yeah.
Careful.
Let's do this thing.
Let's do this
thing.
Careful.
Here we go.
Let's throw down.
Does God call for heart knowledge? Yes. He wants you to let him in. He wants you to let him be part of your life, be in that relationship with him lead the way. That's very much discipleship from him. For some people, who that's their way into that is Bible study.
Sure.
And so if they're, depending on their heart condition, it's hard to put a label on any one person. We don't know.
And here's the thing. I'm not saying that I would point out and be like, you're not going. Right? No, the warning, though, is still there, and it is it's pretty darn specific.
Yeah, but sometimes you still don't know. There's people whose heart, Jesus has their heart.
But here's the thing.
But they Bible study. That's what they do, and that's how that to them that helps them relate to Jesus more than anything else. And
yeah, but if you're not being held accountable, then how are you doing life? That's one of those things. It's I'm not saying you're not a Christian. I'm not saying that. I'm saying there's certain things that whenever you've got them placed in your life, it is better checks and balances than others.
Well, I'll give you that, but I would, like I said, I would just caution on how we go about saying stuff like that, because starts to sound like if you're not there yet, then you're not there. You're not going to be. And there are plenty of people whose heart's in the right place, but they're just trying to get there.
Yeah, but if they're not there yet, they're not there. Like,
yeah,
that
but they're
is
not.
the truth.
But that's to say, but that there that I'm talking about is salvation itself.
Okay, right.
That's not for us to hand out.
But
or
it
to not
is for
hand
us
out.
to warn. It is
Warn
for us
that
to.
you want to go forward. Yeah. Yes, I mean we're not meant to be stagnant. Faith isn't something. It's not an object you just grab and then put on your shelf. It's something that is. It's an action verb.
100%.
It's meant to go forward. It's meant to be used. It's meant to change you. It's meant to, take over your life. I get you. I'm there. Just it's when you start speaking in kind of black and white terms, it's people are going to have an issue with that because
It is black and white.
I'm just saying.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing, though. I'm not saying.
It starts to group people together
But
that
I'm
don't
not
necessarily
saying-
need to be grouped together.
I'm not saying on here that Luke isn't going to heaven. He's not saved. I'm not saying that, right? And I'm not saying we should say that. We shouldn't. We don't get to make that call. But what I do get to do is say Jesus says that not everybody who says Lord, Lord is going to enter the kingdom of heaven. And the warning there is, the people who are in the church is who that's to. The people that are in the know, the people that are supposed to know better, the people that are supposed to know him.
Well, there are people that, by that standard, though, there are plenty of people that go to, I think we're getting off topic.
But it's not, well,
there's
okay,
plenty of
but-
people that go to church but never actually take steps to let Jesus into their heart. It seems like the right thing to do. It seems like the place they're supposed to be.
But it goes to the next
They
step.
might even participate in certain things because that's what but they've never actually accepted it and
How about
let
healing?
it change their life. What do you mean healing?
Well, he says that those who have cast out devils and done many wonderful works in my name, powerful things, like spiritual things that show God's power, by healing and doing those things. Like, people that have done that, not all of those people make it. And it's because of a difference between head knowledge and heart knowledge.
Well, perhaps that's true, but it's
And
hard
I'm
for
not
us to say
judging-
who is.
I'm not, but it is for us to hold people accountable to things, which is the point of discipleship. Jesus said, go and make disciples.
Yes, but
He didn't say, go and make people smarter. I'm saying in the rawest form, right? That's what he said. Now I'm not poo-pooing on on Bible study, okay? I'm not poo-pooing on knowledge because that's what I like to argue about is the knowledge bits. I like to think that deeper thinking. Like, that's one of my favorite pastimes, is to have that intellectual combat with somebody to get to a deeper rooted knowledge, right? Like, I love that. So I'm not poo-pooing on that. But I'm saying, like, there's a difference. And we have to know that it's important to be in a discipleship process. Because that's where you get held accountable. A Bible study is not. You can have Bible study within discipleship. Okay? You can absolutely have that. I mean, all of my discipleships have had that. So I'm not saying that, you can have Bible study without discipleship. But it's hard to have discipleship without Bible study.
well, okay, fine.
And Bible study doesn't mean necessarily that you're always cracking open the Bible. Because not all of them had copies of it. So,
got you, but listen,
I got you. But
no, I'm good with the buts.
like I said, there's a heart for. I think disciples have a heart for wanting to learn the Bible more and the Word better.
Yes.
And I think that's something that's important. The biggest thing when it comes to, because as soon as you start to open up the envelope of salvation, if yes or no, then it just gets kind of funny, because really we're not to decide that. It's a heart thing. And the only thing I would do is encourage anyone. It's like, have you opened your heart to Jesus? Have you accepted him? Is he really the Lord of your life? If you can answer the question yes, awesome. You should be good. Keep on doing that. You know what I mean? But yeah, just be careful with when you start to say if they're saved or not, because
Look, man,
that's
like I've said the whole
it's a
time,
can of worms. Every
it's
time.
not something I'm going to ever say to somebody, you're not saved, right? Like, that is for you to decide. However, it is 100% on me to say, hey, that's not Christian-like behavior.
I mean,
You're not acting like a Christian.
You know what, though?
know
I have
Jesus?
seen.
Let me tell you about him.
I have personally seen. There's a guy up north. His name's Ron. I love this dude. He's a much older guy. And during COVID, I don't know if I've shared the story before, but it was amazing. During COVID, he almost died, and in that state of being that he was in, he remembered praying, Lord, into your hands I commend my spirit. And then everything kind of reversed, and he got better. And he looked at it as that he finally gave his life over to Jesus in a real way. Now, what's interesting is that this is a man who thought he had it all up here, up in head knowledge. Right. He thought he knew a lot. But and as we entered into Bible study with him, and so the Bible study we had a men's Bible study, and it was first and foremost a Bible study where the conditions of being there was a man and a Bible. That was really it. But we ended up discipling one another a lot for those who would open up to one another. When he first got there, he was very much up here. Everything was had to be logical, and it just he thought he knew it, but to watch him over a very small period of time go from here to here was incredible. It was one of the most amazing things I've seen when it comes to just transformation. Everything he thought he knew, and then when it got here, it just changed him.
Right. I mean, I would also say like that was discipleship.
Well,
so,
yes, I'm not saying it wasn't.
Right.
I'm just saying I've seen it. The whole point of that story was not that I've seen someone go from no discipleship to discipleship. It was to say I've seen it go from head to heart.
But that's my point. That's what I'm trying to drive home, is that like that is one of the distinctions between the two, is that when you're in discipleship, it leads to heart knowledge, because you can't help but start understanding that this is how it applies, and this is the real meaning behind it. This is the real meat. Like, it is. There was a reason why Jesus said, "Go and make disciples of all nations." Right? There's the big command, right? Is go and do it.
So I think the first step when it comes to discipleship it comes when you finally get past your own self. Like when you finally really do open up to Jesus, I think that's the first step. Let's remind. I would say that Jesus is the first and foremost the best teacher.
Okay.
So I know a lot of people who think they know a lot about everything, and some of them I love very dearly, and I wish would get out of their own way in so many regards, because they think they just know everything, and that head stuff gets in their way. And so when it comes to the idea of opening up to Jesus, they just won't let themselves. It's like they have to come up with a reason why that's not something they need to do. That's not something they want to do. But I think when you first finally realize the value in that, and that Jesus, this is real, and this is something that you want, that is step one, because now you're getting past yourself. That's the beginning of discipleship. What naturally should occur then is the reaching out to someone else to help you with this. Usually, especially if you pray for it, hold on, Jesus will bring other people to your life. The idea that we're not supposed to be just doing this on our own, faith on our own, that we're supposed to be in a community, a church community. I mean, the early churches weren't a set of walls where people came every Sunday. It was a group of people who encouraged one another. That was authentic discipleship from day one of faith. And so when you come to faith, you want to be around that kind of thing. You want to learn more. And the best way to learn more is not just in a book. It's from seeing other people living it out.
Sure.
So that desire comes from that changed heart from the get-go.
Yes, but the command was for us to go and find people.
Well, that's part of it, is we go and we show them the way. We point them at Jesus.
Right. No,
but
I know.
The thing is
I'm saying go and find people, make them disciples.
That's evangelism 101.
No,
Evangelism
that's discipleship.
Discipleship
Evangelism and
starts with
discipleship are not
evangelism.
the same thing.
Discipleship starts with evangelism.
No, it starts with a relationship.
Yeah, that's how evangelism works.
No,
And
well, that's not how evangelism has worked in the United
that's
States.
how people
in the
try to
last
force
100
it
years.
without relationship. But the best way to give people the truth is to have relationship with them, to meet them on their level.
I agree 100% with that. I'm saying that when you say evangelism, people think Billy Graham. I think Billy Graham
because people put the wrong connotations to the things.
Well, okay, but that's why that's why we're here. That's why we are here to define these things
I will
and
speak
explain
up and
them.
say that I have no idea who Billy Graham is, and that I know evangelism by the definition of evangelism, which is essentially my understanding of it is spreading the good word. But I have this. It's my understanding that there's something else that people associate it with, and I have no idea what that is. So when you said that about evangelism, I was like, yeah. And you were like, but I'm thinking of this.
What does it look like? What does evangelism look like in practice to you?
To me, in my head.
Like, what are you thinking?
To my understanding of the example, or to my understanding of what evangelism is, it's just being an example and being an opportunity for people to follow Christ.
Okay.
So, like, putting yourself out there, but not, like...
I don't disagree with that. Do you disagree with that?
I don't disagree with that.
But here's the thing.
In the United
That's
States,
not
that's
what the United States, most people in the United States,
It's
when
like
they hear
somebody preaching on a
evangelism...
street corner.
Right.
They
Like
think
telling
about...
you you're a sinner.
And the biggest problem that we have created as the church with evangelism in the United States is that we say, "Hey man, here's Jesus. Have you ever sinned? Have you ever lied? Have you ever whatever?" We generally go that route, sometimes not, but we get them right here to this knowledge of, "Oh my gosh, there is a Savior," and then we drop them. And that is my biggest problem with evangelism is like, that's it. I've evangelized. Whereas discipleship is, hey, dude, like, come over and hang out. And the relationship builds and the conversations happen. And then you're like, hey, I got a buddy that I need to share this with. And then you bring him into relationship. And that multiplies and actually has foundation.
Kind of the two things together. I mean, usually discipleship is when there's an agreed upon relationship mutually that for benefit, So discipleship.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Well, I mean, because you can't having a friend come over that doesn't believe, that's evangelism. If you have someone that does believe, that's discipleship. You're evangelizing until you're discipling.
I don't know that I agree with that. I
think, okay, you don't have to agree, but my thought process is that until they accept the Jesus, you're evangelizing. Until they do, and then it's discipleship, because at that point you're both agreeing on Jesus, on who he is.
But you can be a disciple of somebody not a Christian.
Well, yeah, but that's a whole different...
Nope, it's the same...
it's still, there's something that that you've agreed to be discipled in.
I don't know, man. Maybe.
So, for me, the biggest difference... Well, one of the biggest differences in the two things is how many people can be in those groups.
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, that's a good...
Like, I've seen Bible studies have 40, 50 people in it and been effective in teaching people and giving people head knowledge, and... they're sitting around tables together, and usually the same people sit around each other. But there's also those people that go from group to group, so they don't have those connections and don't have that, they don't have that accountability and stuff.
Yeah.
Do you think that would work, 40, 50 people in a discipleship group?
No.
Why?
Jesus couldn't do it. So what makes you think you can do it?
Well, could he? Maybe
yes.
He could have.
Yes, he could have.
Did he display that? No, he didn't.
I don't know. Maybe with human limitations, he couldn't
he
have.
displayed a 12 and an inner 3 that he really focused on.
Yeah.
But maybe that's because with our human limitations, that can't happen.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I can't think of 40 people
he
that
taught
I'm that close to.
5,000 people
at
the same time.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not
as Bible study
and
versus discipleship.
I say, and for me personally, since I'm in a discipleship group, if there's more than 6 people, it's a struggle to make sure that everybody is talking, make sure that everybody has the time to say what they need to say, and is answering questions and stuff, and talking about our lives and stuff like that. And beyond that, it's hard to follow up with that many people.
All 3 hours of your guys' discipleship class.
Shut your face.
Or group, whatever.
And so, that for me, I know, as the leader of my group, that's my limit. And that might not be somebody else's limit, but somebody else's limit might be 8. could be 12, but you're probably not Jesus, so
part of it,
probably not 12.
Part of it
and
too.
some people it could be 4,
12,
or it could be 2.
12.
Part of it too depends on like the composition, like you're saying, like because some people are really good at staying on track. Some people are really good at rabbit trailing, and the conversations need to happen like that sometimes.
Yeah.
And so my groups are going to have to go longer, which means that we're going to have less people, versus somebody who can stay on track and it still be meaningful discipleship. Like, you might be able to have 8 people.
But once again, I mean, the relationship aspect of it is so incredibly important. And, so even like how the church, I mean, I would say the church evangelize, something that I think churches do well, the churches that do this, is providing a space for people to come in and meet, so you can meet them on their level at the same time. So when if you're a church that throws events and you invite everyone in as a way of welcoming them into the idea that, listen, this is who we are, and we're not terrible people, and we want to love on the community, and we want you to be a part of what we got going on here. We do that. We have Winterfest is a great example. I love when churches do that. They're opening up their doors. They're not closed off. It's not exclusive. It's just, let's keep reaching out. Let's just keep giving people other opportunities to see that we're people too, that we want, that they're included, we accept them. Those are the beginning parts of relationship, and I would say evangelism. But that leads to, like I said, discipling, because the people that come in that then allow you to make those connections.
Most churches don't do discipleship.
Well, I mean, I'm not saying that that's not true, and that I'm not saying that that's not terrible, because I think that it's important.
Yeah.
But I think the relationship is the most important. But that's the difference, because we did talk about Bible study, and Bible study being something that doesn't necessarily require that relationship. People can easily come in and out of Bible studies.
Yeah.
And have no connection to everyone else.
Right.
And so, like I said, they can be a bit colder. Now, they're not the ones I usually prefer. I prefer warmer. I prefer when a Bible study turns into discipleship and a discipleship turns into a Bible study. I like it when they're mixed, because I feel like the Bible studies are richer and people understand more, and you tend to take in how people learn and how they understand better. But
I got a question for you. So when Scripture says that we are to not forsake the fellowship of believers, right? Gathering together, right? Does that mean, in your eyes, or just in general, like church, or is it something deeper? Does that make sense?
I
mean church service, like, you know what I mean? Like, not I don't mean like church, we are the church, right? This is church right now. But I mean, like, does it mean like fellowship, like what we're doing right now, or does it mean a Sunday morning?
I think it can mean either one. But let me broaden this out for you. Let's remember what the early churches look like.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? A community.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. The forsaking of gathering together, to me, in the most plain and simple way, is don't try to do it by yourself. Get with people that can support you in this.
Right.
Have a community.
Essentially discipleship.
Yeah.
I'm going to close the door.
Essentially discipleship.
Well, yes, essentially discipleship.
I mean, because that's really like, that's where growth happens. That's where fellowship happens. I mean,
all these things,
man.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, I think...
And it was smaller groups back then.
Yeah.
Generally speaking. Not always. There were some big churches.
There were some, and there were big...
There were some mega
communities
churches,
and such like that. But still, the idea behind it is, we're not meant to do this alone. I tell people all the time, Jesus, did he pull away? Yeah, sometimes he pulled away from maybe some prayer, reconnect with the Father.
But it wasn't for long.
But you know what? Immediately we then became communal. Yes, faith is first personal, immediately communal. It is not separated. They go hand in hand. So your faith is personal. Your relationship with God is personal, but it's not meant to stay that way. It's meant to be shared and encouraging to another person so that other people can pour into you. It's a famous the famous verse, iron sharpens iron. Well, it's true. When you have people that've got your back that know the same guy you do, there's an intimacy there. For the relationships in my life, there's people that I would take a bullet for any day of the week, and I love them so dearly. But there's an intimacy to our relationships that's missing because I can't talk to them about God. I can't talk to them about the Bible in the way that I can talk with other believers. So that intimacy is missing. Sure. It's something that I think that a believer should desire. I think that some of us do, and it's hard to admit sometimes, but I desire to share my faith with other people and to talk about it and to learn about it and to encourage one another. I desire that. I don't want to just keep it to myself. And the thing is that it leaves you open and prone to attack. We are in a spiritual warfare. There's entities against us all the time, and if you don't have backup, then you're a more easy target.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would like to add to the whole church, the church discipleship stuff like that. It's always been a word that's been around in the church since I can remember, but it wasn't until 2 years ago,
that you started,
yeah,
or me?
I did.
Yeah, it was about 2 years ago.
2 years ago when I started one that I had ever been in a discipleship group.
Mm-hmm. It's probably.
I grew up in the church. I worked at a church before this church.
Yeah.
And it was a buzzword and something that people talked about, but it really wasn't done. Mm. Or if it was because I was in a discipleship group with 2 other people, doing a book but it didn't stick. A lot that we all had life stuff going on that was we were all in different stages of our lives basically. And so we couldn't really connect necessarily all the time. And so it wasn't a very effective one. And, do I love those ladies? Yeah, but I don't have the connection that I do with the ladies that, I'm in my discipleship group with now.
But that was also started, not that it can't start this way, but it's a little harder when it starts this way. That was also not started because you guys... That
was started as it
felt
was we were all mentors
called.
In the youth group.
Right.
Yeah.
It wasn't we all feel called to do this thing as much as we need to do this thing so we can have others do this thing. Yeah. And so, which is not a bad thing. I'm not saying it's not, but it is harder to get genuine and deep whenever it's that way, unless you are intentional, right? You got to be intentional. And I think that's one of the keys to discipleship, is the intentionality behind the relationship. And I mean, I'm not saying that you can disciple the people that don't have Jesus in common. I'm not saying that, but that's really the relationship is where discipleship begins. And I think that allowing the other person or people that you're in discipleship with to get to know the secret you, that wall barrier coming down, starting to break that down. I think that's where discipleship actually starts. I think the relationship with Jesus starts with you letting that down from yourself.
Yeah.
But I think discipleship starts whenever you start letting it down for other people.
Yeah, and it's not all at once for many people. It takes a long time. So
one wall at a time,
we should define that. There's so
one
many
portion of a wall at a time.
Yeah, don't think you have to come in and just unload everything.
One rock at a time.
But honestly, you're right. But honestly, if you can make that happen, it's not everybody.
I would say,
but
that
if you can just be open.
Yeah, but
with them,
make sure it's someone you're safe being open with too. Just being open to anyone necessarily does. But I'll tell you the discipleship. Go ahead.
I don't know. You said, make sure that it's somebody you can see safe. There was somebody that I was in a discipleship group that was not safe for me to be in a discipleship group, and that doesn't change how that doesn't change anything.
I agree. I agree with that. It's.
But it's because you're dealing with people, and people are imperfect. We're in a fallen world, and so that's part of it.
Safe.
And and honestly, it didn't hurt as much as it should have.
Well, I'll get you
which
there.
Which is wild to me.
I'm taking into account for that for some. I mean, for some of us, it's easier than others, but for some people, they've got some stuff that if they're going to unload, mean, there's been people that have been really burned by unloading some things.
100%.
And so, that's why I give that warning.
But that's also our responsibility as fellow brothers and sisters to be like, yo, that's not right, lay off. And to come around that person who's getting burned and guard them. Like, that's on us. And I know that, like, we can't make that happen at other churches. I can't make you do that.
No.
But I can't call you out on it, right? Like, I can be like, yo, you should be standing with me for Luke, right?
Yeah.
They're burning Luke over this thing.
Yeah.
Well, say the YouTube videos. I don't know.
Got to put that fire out.
They're burning Luke over this. We're gonna stand beside him and stop that from happening. Like, whatever that looks like. Like, I can say, hey, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you standing beside your brother? Right? That's what Barnabas did with Paul, and in the whole Peter's group, the disciples being like, no.
Not him.
And Barnabas was like, yes, that's exactly what this whole thing is about.
Yeah.
And so, like, we can't make other people do the things. And that's something I think most people understand that, even though sometimes we really think that we can. And it even permeates in our prayers, right? God, change this person, right? No. That's not how this works, right? Like, we have to get to a point where we believe that God, all right, I can call this person out, but I better be being the one standing beside the brother, right?
Yeah.
I think you need to better define that Paul and Barnabas thing, because not everybody.
Okay,
not everybody knows that. There might be people listening that don't.
So story of Paul, right? Like, Saul, his name was Saul first.
Yep.
And some people would argue with it. His name is still Saul. It's just a difference in language, but whatever. We refer to him as Saul before his conversion. So Saul was a Pharisee, which is a Jewish leader, who basically hunted down and killed Christians, or had Christians killed,
He was there when they stoned Stephen, the first
held
Christian
the coats,
which was one of the disciples.
Yep.
The first martyr, actually.
Yeah.
Yep.
Does it count if he didn't die? He died, but he didn't. Never mind. Anyways,
What?
well, whenever there was one of them that was stoned and like.
Stephen died.
Yeah, Stephen died.
Oh, was it Stephen? Did Stephen die at that one?
Yeah.
Stephen died. Yeah.
Well, who was it that got stoned and then walked away?
Well, Paul got stoned and walked right back into the same village.
Oh, okay, so that was that one. All right.
But
Stephen got
Stephen,
stoned. He didn't get stoned and walk into the village.
Yeah.
I mean, they threw stones at him.
They threw rocks at him,
and
he just walks right back in.
So, anyways, okay, so he was there orchestrating the stoning of Stephen, and he was on his way to do the same thing in another place, and Jesus met him where he was, knocked him off his horse, and blinded him, and said, "I'm the Lord. Like, why are you hunting me? Basically, why are you persecuting my people? Why are you hunting me down?" And there was a conversion that happened over the process of some days that God used a man by the name of Ananias who really didn't want to
he said,
help
please,
Paul.
Anybody but me.
Which is a common theme in the Bible. Well, anybody but me, right? Yeah.
So
Moses,
if you ever think that, you're not alone.
Yeah.
So,
normal.
but that probably means it's definitely you. Just want to put that out there. But Ananias eventually goes to him, does what the Lord asks. The blindness wears off, and Paul.
He vouches for Paul in the end.
Yes, and Paul meets up with Barnabas, who's another believer, and he goes to the disciples and is like, "Look, I met the Lord," and they're like, "Yo, you kill people," like, and basically,
You're trying to infiltrate us to kill us.
Yeah, right. I'm paraphrasing hardcore, but basically they're like, no, we don't want nothing to do with you. You're the one that was hunting us. You can't be. And Barnabas was like, yo, you guys are forgetting who our Lord is. Like, fine, I'll take him under my wing.
Yeah.
And they went and they did life together. They were in discipleship together for a year before he really came back and was a part of the disciples in any major way, if I'm not mistaken. But so that's that, and after his conversion, he was called Paul. So that's who Paul is.
Paul and Peter, like the two big guys of like the New Testament, and like after Jesus, like they hit heads a lot.
Yeah, but it gets to the point though where
the iron sharpened iron there.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a great example of
Paul eventually tells basically. Not only has he accepted Paul, but it gets to the point where Peter's like, "Yeah, dude, what Paul's writing is scripture. It's legit." So let me tell you. So, in my experience, I will say this: there's a benefit to discipleship that a lot of people don't think about. So, and there's a negative if you don't have it. So, discipleship can make a big church feel small, and the lack of it can make a small church feel big. So if it's not in a church, I don't care what size church you are, it'll feel like you're lost in a crowd of people.
100%.
But, I mean, so I was a part of Mountain Christian Church up in Maryland, and it is pretty good sized church, multi-campus, the whole thing. And one of the things that we focus on is get everybody in a group. You got to circle up. You got to get in a group. And on the surface level, that doesn't seem like much. It just seems like, okay, just go join a Bible study. But that wasn't actually what we were trying to do.
Right.
It was more the culture we were trying to have was that you were welcoming these groups. These as a leader of a group, you were welcoming people in, accepting them. You were putting down little covenants for your groups that look, this is what this is about. You know, you have a place here, and it was immediate fellowship and immediate discipleship where you wanted to care about each other and you looked after one another and you prayed for one another and you started to peek into each other's lives and be there. And when you were able to achieve that as often as we did up there, that large church did not feel as big as it is.
Yeah. And one of the major reasons I think that is, and I 100% on board with that, like 100%, is the idea of in a Bible study, you're not, generally in a Bible study, you are a consumer. Doesn't have to be. I'm not saying universally, all right? But you're not required to be a contributor. In discipleship, you're required to be a contributor. You have to contribute. And, I mean, I didn't think about that terminology until, for those of you who have been listening for a long time, Grant used to be on here. He uses that a lot, that contributor, consumer conversation. I think that's pretty much become pretty popular verbiage throughout our church, but at least in the leadership circles. But yeah, I think that we've got to get away from that consumer mindset, right? And if we're going to do a Bible study, if we're going to be a part of a Bible study, let's be contributors too, right? Like there's plenty that we can contribute, whether that's a question, because a question is contributing. Like you're participating in this thing and you're putting yourself in a place of vulnerability because people think there are stupid questions, and sometimes I have a hard time thinking that some questions aren't, but a question that you don't know and something that you don't know is not something stupid to ask. So
it's also not stupid to say that you don't know, but you'd like to find out.
100%.
That is not stupid.
Sitting around and not asking that question is stupid.
Yes.
Because that leads to willful ignorance, and that's a consumer mindset. That is 100% consumer mindset. And so, but discipleship, you can't just be a consumer in discipleship. Your discipleship group will fall apart. It will not work out if everybody's there just to be a consumer. I've seen it happen. Yeah. So, and not necessarily with one of mine, but not because of me, but I'm saying for those who are listening that were a part of mine, I'm not calling any of you guys out. Like I don't think that was anything. I think lives just went different directions in some of the things. So, but as far as all that goes, like you got to contribute. That's a major difference in the two, because if you just sit around and let others pour into you,
and contributing can
it's
start.
not gonna go anywhere.
Yeah, it can start as easy as just making it interactive. So
Yeah,
And I think,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but
you trick people into it. Is that what you're saying?
no, well, sort of.
Yeah,
I'll tell
yeah.
you.
If you're teaching,
yeah, I think that's the contributing and consuming thing is part of why CIY Move was so effective to us, because we all went there the first day and a lot of people just kind of stood around, but we started getting calls to action throughout the week, like prompts to do things. And that was what actually helped us have all these experiences at CIY Move, because not in the beginning, we were just showing up like, we're okay, we're here, we'll listen to the message. But we started getting asked to do things. And
like
I
what?
think
Give us some examples.
well, every day we would get like these challenges that we had to fulfill, right? We got these little cards that were like, try and do this. Like, I'm trying to think of a specific one just off the top of my head. But it would be like, go and pray for a person, right? Like, don't just keep like being by yourself. Go out somewhere, find someone, pray for them, right? And you had to do that. And then once you did it, it was kind of like almost approaching the waters of like, oh, like I need to be over here too, if that makes sense. And I think why we all came back from Move so connected with each other is because by the end we had started contributing to each other. Like some of the days, for example, where people had very spiritual experiences, they sat down, right, and they would pray, and by the end of the week we would like put hands on them and pray with them instead of just like
Staring at them.
them.
Right.
Yeah, like what they're doing over there, because I know for that kind of stuff didn't really happen before we went to Move, but when we started getting calls to action, like we're all going to go do this thing together, or I want you to try and finish this challenge by the end of the week, we were able to build that connection with everyone by contributing to people,
When a pastor, that's one of my favorite things, when a pastor actually has people in the middle of his sermon do something right then and there. I call that the first step. Like, if you can get them to take a first step, whether that's literally move to the next seat, whatever that looks like, everything then becomes a little less uncomfortable to then take the second step. The hardest step is the first, right? Because it's going from nothing to something. And then after that, it's like, oh, I've already taken a first step. Why I could possibly take that second step, and it lets your guard down. And so that's one of my favorite things. Whenever somebody puts that into a sermon and actually has people do something right then, like stops everything, because it makes you contribute just a little bit.
Yeah.
To that
Participation,
thing.
yeah.
Participation, just a little bit. Even though it's still sermon, it's still that message it's different. But it makes you participate just that little bit.
Yeah, it can change a Bible study and turn it into discipleship real fast, because one of my favorite models that we used a lot was just to, when you get a group of guys want to study like a book of the Bible, read little sections at a time and then just open it up. All right, what do we think? What are we seeing here? What are we feeling here? And just start the conversation. Does that mean that the leader can let it go wherever it wants to go? No, it doesn't necessarily mean that. A leader can just be like, all right, yeah, so I can see it's going this direction, and we need to get away from there, and yeah, that's not correct, and I can kind of give some input into what's really going on there. But giving everyone a chance to kind of interact with the text and to start to get to know each other's perspectives and personalities.
Now you're talking smaller group?
Smaller group, not from a stage. If you're doing it from a stage,
well, no, but like even are you talking 20 people?
I'm talking like 12.
Okay, so like a max of 12. I could see that, and I would consider, I would challenge that sort of thing is discipleship, not a Bible study. Even though there's Bible study happening within it,
it starts with
tricking
Bible
them.
study.
You're tricking them.
You kind of are.
You're tricking them because it's a bait and switch. Like
it is
you are,
kind of.
and I understand that it could just end up
things.
being. It could just end up being a Bible study, and that's not a bad thing.
I mean, the worst. That's an easy way to see. Like, are we ready for this?
But you've got some
not?
key elements. You got a smaller group.
Yep.
Right, and I suggest that it be a group of the same gender, and not of mixed gender, if you can help it. Just because you can ask harder questions. If there's not somebody of the opposite gender, that makes it as uncomfortable.
100% agree with that. There is nothing like being in at least in my experience, when you're with just guys, it's so much easier for us all. not to attack each other, but to call each other out. Because there's just that security of being with brothers. Like, hey, why are you doing this? And then everyone there kind of has that trust of like, we're all.
I'm all about like being kind of blunt on this podcast.
Yeah.
So like, if I were to ask one of you guys if you watch pornography in front of Lizzie, that would be super uncomfortable and super inappropriate, right?
It would be.
But if we were in a group study, obviously not on the podcast, right?
Yeah.
But if we were in a group study and I were to ask you guys that, it would be a whole lot less uncomfortable, and you guys could be like, well, why are you asking? And maybe I'm like, hey, you know. So
that's
it
the point I was
creates
gonna
that
make.
a little bit. So
The point I was going to make is that there's just certain questions that girls are less uncomfortable to answer to each other as they are if there's a man in the room. And there's certain questions that men will not answer if there's a woman in the room.
And sometimes men won't answer those questions with just men in the room. But
so
there's
but
a
your
better
chances
chance.
are better than if there's a girl in the room.
For sure. I think that's why it's more of a discipleship group. Now, if it's a mixed group, it's harder to do that as a discipleship.
Can I give an
the bait and
example of
switch
that
is
real
great.
quick? This is just a quick one, but I'm not going to say who. I'm not going to say any names. I'm not going to say what we were talking about. But there was this guy who recently started coming to church, and we kind of introduced each other. We were like, oh, hey, how are you doing? And then someone was like, oh, you guys should hang out. I think you'd be good friends. So I said, hey, we should go on a run together. And he was like, oh, okay. So just me and him, we went out to this place to go on a run. And within like 5 minutes, we were asking each other like the most jaw-dropping questions about each other. Like, hey, what's up with this? And the other person would, because it was just us two guys, we were so accountable with each other. We didn't like try and sugarcoat anything. We just laid it out, and that allowed us to criticize and develop each other.
I'm so mad that I know everybody you just talked about.
I know. Sorry.
Were you going to say something earlier?
No, it was because Luke was going to say something.
Oh, okay,
And you guys started talking. And
Yeah,
My bad.
We
Is that what you were going to say?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
it was not for me. The pinky
Well,
wasn't
yeah,
for me.
right. The pinky wasn't for you.
I know
That's
everybody involved and some of the stuff you talked about.
I know, Carly,
Okay.
you don't listen to this.
What
but
I
that
think
was a
whatever
tribute
you
to you.
heard we talked about was not at all what we were actually talking about. It was brief, and I didn't bring it up.
All right,
I know
all
what
right.
you're thinking.
See, okay, doesn't
No,
matter.
Yeah,
let's
doesn't
get
matter.
too deep into this here. This is
Yeah,
getting too deep
we
into
don't want to
this.
be revealing.
We don't want to
on
be
the podcast.
revealing. That would never.
So I think that one thing to know, and I know that at least two of you in the room, and probably you at this point in time, and anybody who's been listening for a long time, know a lot of the disagreement that happens on the podcast is either played up or is semantics. To some degree, right? Like, or just me saying things that I think is like worded correctly, but is not worded the way that everybody else understands those words to go
Bible
together.
ship.
And then whenever we get to the end, it's like, oh, we agree on all this stuff. Like, I think that we're all in agreement with what these things are.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the differences and the importance of each, right? Like, I think that both are important.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you think about it, like, if you put people straight into discipleship, that's terrifying.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Like, that's super intimidating.
You got to
Well, it
kind
can
of
be,
wade
yeah.
into the water
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
It can be, but I don't think that they should wait long. I mean, I don't think that we should wait long before we encourage it. I mean, I think we should encourage it right off the bat, but like bait and switch is a little crazy
It's
right off the bat.
sneaky, but it works.
You're right. You're right. Well, I'm not saying you can't do
Well,
it.
but
I'm
it-
just saying
but
like
it-
the
yeah,
first thing
but
they
it's
do
not
is
like-
bait and switch. I don't know. That's a
But
little
it
much.
doesn't, like, I feel like it more develops naturally. It's not really an
Yeah.
actual bait and switch. It's like
No,
it
it's
develops
giving them-
naturally
it-
because of their
all it
time
is
Well,
together.
I mean, that's a
Giving
great example.
opportunities too.
His situation's a great example though of a natural. It naturally occurred. Like it just happened. They were in sync. They weren't backstreet, although they might have
Oh
been
my
running
gosh.
them.
All right, get away from that. As
And they're
fast as you
becoming
can.
boys to men. I mean, it's
Oh
great.
my
I mean, come on, you gotta love it. You gotta
Okay,
love
I'm
it.
not going to participate. I'm not going to participate. I'm not
Okay.
going to participate. All right,
All
moving
right.
on.
I wish I had some M&Ms.
Oh my gosh.
I really do though.
Wow.
Wow, this is
a
going
lot.
downhill quick.
we could change the cartoons. I got some peanuts. Anyways, all right. So I hope that all of you now have questions, and I hope that all of you want to explore those questions with other people in a deeper relationship together. But if you just have questions you need answered, you can always message us.
Yeah.
I really appreciate all of the participation that several of you have been putting in, like on every episode. Some of you have been messaging in, or every other episode you guys have been messaging in recently, and I really appreciate that. I really appreciate all of you who are sporting our merch, right? We don't make any money off of it currently, but you're getting our name out there, and you're really being an ambassador for us, right?
Yeah, you're part of the show.
I don't
You
know we
really
have
are.
merch. Where can I get the merch?
So we have a link tree.
Okay.
It is the Truth Response. I think it's just Linktree / the Truth Response. I think that's the link. If not, you can look at our Facebook or Instagram. It's the link is on there for the Linktree, and you can find all of our social media stuff. You can find our YouTube page, our
Email.
anywhere, our email. You can find anywhere that you could listen to it is all on there. Our merch is on there, and our Patreon that's coming. You can sign up and be on an email list for that when it comes out. So so that's where you can kind of find it. It's cool. Linktree is awesome, and it's really sleek and nice. I don't know what it looks like from a computer, though, to be honest with you. From the phone, though, it looks great. So
Yeah.
but
All the things. So, but thank you for your participation, and continue to help us. It seriously makes this so much more fun to do, too.
and we're growing, and that's
Yeah.
all thanks to you guys, and being willing to listen and hang out and ask questions, because that bolsters how many people see the podcast. So like, subscribe, hit the little bell on YouTube,
Share.
right? Share. Oh, please share.
Share.
We
are
do have-
excited. We got a
Yes.
social media person.
We now have a social media person, and I want to thank our social media person so much for being such an awesome person. And she is willing to do this because she just loves being on social media. And as unhealthy as some of us believe that is, I appreciate people who are built to be able to do it and it not negatively affect them. And so thank you so much for stepping up to that plate that I fall so short in, and filling in a gap that we had that's massive. So over the next weeks, months, you're going to start seeing some different stuff. I'm not the one posting anymore. So, you can actually like it and not have to pretend anymore. And please share it. Man, it means so much. And even if you only share like every other one, whatever, like share for us.
Share.
Don't Sonny, just share.
Send it to everyone.
Yes. I love how you just ignored that one.
Yep, I'm trying
he's
to.
trying.
We love you
to.
guys. Thank you so much for joining us on this crazy adventure, and God bless.
Hey, thanks for joining us. Make sure to subscribe and give us a like on iTunes and Spotify so that you will never miss a show. And while you're at it, check out our Facebook and Instagram pages, and make sure you tell your friends about this show. You don't want them to miss out on the truth, because we are all about the truth here. Thanks for joining us this week, and God bless.